And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange! 145!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
The methane would be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening. You are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where SpaceX is ready to launch but not recover a Falcon 9 mission carrying the Spainsat-NG II satellite aboard. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be your host for this evening's launch broadcast. I see the 5x5s in chat, meaning you can hear me. But of course, it won't just be me that you'll be hearing. We also have, very appropriately for Spainsat, our resident Spaniard, Alex, joining us. How's it going, Alex?
Yeah, so I guess I should be here because it's a Spanish satellite, right? So the Spanish guy gets to be here. Unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna have Spanish commentary or anything like that. Aunque puedo intentar, no sé si eso quizás estaría permitido o algo, pero bueno. I just spooked them, I think, with
Sí, yo quiero Taco Bell. Sorry, I don't know Spanish.
Yeah, I know. I just said that I could try, but yeah, probably not ideal to be mixing languages.
Yeah, that's all right. Obviously, we'll be coming to you, and I just have to point out that Chris Bergen, NASA Spaceflight official in the back channel, has been calling this AlexSat as a result. So, we'll definitely get your expertise on this. But also joining us out in the field is Max Evans. Max, how's it going?
Good evening, everybody. It is going swell, Sawyer. Very, very well. I'm currently stationed out on the beaches south of Cape Canaveral, ready to get a great track of Falcon 9 as it heads off to a geostationary transfer orbit this evening, and unfortunately, not coming back. So, skies look great, and fingers crossed the view holds up.
Absolutely. And the view that you see on your screen right now is being provided by D Wise, also out in the field. D, how is it going?
It is going well. It is a beautiful evening out here on the Space Coast, and it is a wonderful day for a launch.
Love to see it. And of course, we love to see everyone who's here, and we love to see your questions. So if you have any, tag at NASA Spaceflight, and they will appear in the panel that we have back here. That Jay Keegan will probably be breaking. I mean, that Jay Keegan is operating this stream with. So, yeah, at NASA Spaceflight or at NSF for your questions there. But I think, Max, the big thing for this mission, as you pointed out there, is that this is the very rare expendable Falcon 9. Why are we getting rid of the booster on this one?
Well, essentially, the performance needed to get this satellite in particular off to where it needs to go, and in this case, a geostationary transfer orbit that requires more fuel than what Falcon 9 can have on board prior to stage separation than it can use to perform a boost back burn, or a landing on a drone ship out in the Atlantic Ocean. And this booster in particular is booster B1076, and this will be its 22nd and final flight. There were a bunch of eyebrows raised in the last few months because we haven't seen this booster fly in quite a while, and by quite a while, we mean back in mid or early February was the last time we saw this booster fly on a Starlink mission. And speaking of this booster's prior flight history, it includes CRS-26, OneWeb Launch 16, Intelsat IS-40E, SES-03B mPOWER C, Obzon 3, Eutelsat 26D, Türksat 6A, Maxar 2, SXM 9, and 12 previous Starlink missions. Has not flown in a while, and there will be no recovery efforts tonight, obviously, because this booster is not going to be recovered. So, actually, on our flight over the Space Coast today, we actually saw both drone ships, a shortfall of gravitas and just read the instructions, stationed in port, which is a pretty rare sight nowadays, considering how busy the launch cadence normally is. But yep, Falcon 9 needs all of its performance tonight, and that is why they're not going to be bringing it home. So this will be the 22nd and final flight for this booster.
Yes, and as DY Cinema points out in chat, leaker. Yeah.
I mean,
so-
I posted a photo of the launch mount at Roberts Road earlier, so I guess I did leak it earlier, but it was Crispy approved. It was Chris Bergen approved.
Yeah, there you go. So there may or may not be a KSC flyover video coming very soon. And by the way, if you want to see that photo, check out the NSF socials. So, yeah, all of that still to come. But in the meantime, still to come tonight in about 52 minutes or so is the launch of Spainsat-NG II, which, in a shocker, this is a follow-up in addition to Spainsat-NG I, new generation 1. So this is going to join the other one, except in a different orbit, and that will help provide different bands of communication for Spain's military. So that will be in the X and KA military band, in addition now to adding UHF communications there as well. So this is kind of a bit of a big boy here with a single payload that is 6,100 kilograms. And of course, the big thing being that this is going into geostationary, as you were talking about there, transfer orbit. So that is part of why they need all that extra mass. And to help with that, they actually end up removing the grid fins and legs to allow this big boy that you see on the left side of your screen there to make it inside the payload fairing and make it to its planned orbit. Of course, we'll be happy to answer more questions about this satellite as we go along here tonight before it ends up in the 29 degree east operating area. And that will go along with the other one, which is at 30 degrees west. All right, let's take some questions here. Mimu saying, Official Soul Does Stuff asking, stubby nozzle, yay or nay? D, stubby nozzle?
That's a yay. Stubby nozzle for its, I will admit its flaws, and it's perhaps not the most beautiful nozzle or whatever. It is a very efficient use of resources. But actually for this mission, I don't believe so. When they need these high performance missions, they can't do that savings of material. So this one, I believe, should be a full length nozzle on the second stage, but when we have it, it's nice.
That's a debate right there. That's nice. You know, it does what it has to do, but I still think aesthetically the full nozzle is better. But yes, as pointed out, given the fact that they need all of this mass to get into space, yeah, that's part of it. Which goes along with Mechazilla, who was asking, when they do a non-recoverable mission, what do they add or remove internally? So not grid fins, landing legs, RCS. Do we actually know? As we see NG1, by the way, the earlier launch from earlier this year, earlier of course, on the left side of your screen. But do we know what they add or remove, Alex, from the booster?
Well, they obviously remove the landing legs, right? They remove the grid fins and things like that, because it's not just that it lowers the mass and everything, but it's like if you don't need it, why you should even keep them, right? The booster is not going to be performing any landing, so you don't need the landing legs. It's not going to be doing a control reentry, so why have the grid fins and things like that? They might even take some of the COPVs, for example, for the thrusters. Those are usually stored in the RP1 tank because those are, just essentially at more or less room temperature, even though we call them cold gas thrusters, just mean that, it's not for it's not burning with each other, right? It's not like a regular thruster, if you will, like Draco thrusters and things like that. So yeah, things like that could probably also be taken out of the tank if need be. I don't know to which lengths they go, because maybe that will be probably too much, right? Like going in and taking out a lot of the internal components that, sure, they're probably used for recovery and things like that. But maybe it's not that needed, right? Like maybe going in and going to great lengths, it's probably the opposite, right? It's probably a lot of work for very little gain in that case. But things like the grid fins and landing legs, that's actually really rather easy for them to take apart. So those are usually the things that we never see attached on a booster when it's in expendable mode because of that. So yeah, those we're safe on knowing that they are not there because they are on the outside and we don't see them. And in fact, I mean, you can see there, no grid fins. And once we start seeing it lift off and everything, it's got no landing legs either. But some of the internals, they may or may not take those off. We just don't know. But again, as I said, sometimes it might be too much work for very little gain, right?
Yeah, exactly. Plus at this point, the booster has flown so many times. It's one of the older ones in the fleet, first flying November of 2022. So it's kind of like, if we have to get rid of some of it. It's not the worst thing in the world. But one thing that's definitely not the worst thing in the world, Max, right now is the weather. How's the weather looking out there? Because the forecast from the 45th was about as favorable as it gets.
I was just going to say, yeah, in terms of weather, it is looking literally as good as it gets. So on the forecast listed from the 45th Weather Squadron base at the Patrick Space Force Base, there is a less than 5% chance of a weather-related violation, which really, literally, is as good as you can get. I don't think we've ever seen a 0% on a forecast before. Maybe we have at least once. But a less than 5% chance is tonight's forecast. And the primary concerns, literally, I am reading off of the forecast, none. There are no concerns. And according to my Mark 1 eyeballs, there are nothing but tons of stars here in the skies above Cape Canaveral this evening, and just a slight breeze off of the Atlantic Ocean. So no heavy cloud cover and no negative weather in the area, and certainly not enough to get in the way of Falcon 9 getting off the ground tonight. So yeah, literally, as you were saying, Sawyer, the weather is about as good as it can get, and we are now beginning to enter the more dry time of the year here in Florida, where the rainy season is over, and the daily heavy rain showers that occur every afternoon are now starting to pass. So we are now in a more dry time of year, and that I believe the current temperature here is about 71 degrees Fahrenheit here in Cape Canaveral, which is lovely, and it is nowhere near as humid as it is normally. So it feels lovely. There is a hint of fall in the air, even though we are now in mid to late October now. It's about time it got down this way. So yes, weather is looking fabulous.
Fabulous indeed, yeah. And as you pointed out, normally it'll be primary concerns, cumulus clouds or a little liftoff wind, something. This one, absolutely none, which is so rare. And the fact that it's a greater than 95% chance or less than 5% chance of violation. It is still sad, though, looking at the additional risk criteria and seeing booster recovery weather listed as not applicable.
Yep.
Oh, that still stings. But there we go. That's as good as it gets. And Alex, I think we're not the only ones saying good things about the weather. Right.
Yeah, so sorry, I was late to unmute. But yeah, so SpaceX is indeed saying that the weather is looking good for liftoff in less than 1 hour. So that is confirmation that they are indeed still proceeding for the opening of the window. This window is quite rather long because we're not, it's not like an ISS mission, right? This is a long window, 4 hours, and it opens at 9:30 p.m. and that's the liftoff time that they are targeting right now. That sort of comment they are saying good for liftoff in less than 1 hour. It confirms that everything is still on track for that. So yay, I guess.
Yay, indeed. And one thing before we hit the timeline here, I want to point out, Alex, is that This was originally supposed to launch yesterday. And again, the weather seems fine, obviously, with that. The rocket's vertical and everything like that. But you have a very unique perspective because while SpaceX did not post anything on X about the delay, you live in Spain and the Spanish media was able to get the reason why it didn't go yesterday.
Yeah, so apparently, according to our own national media, the sort of the radio television agency, sort of the one in charge from the government and everything, the public one, they said that the issue that came up yesterday to delay the launch by 24 hours had to do with wiring on the flight termination system of Falcon 9 while they were sort of putting everything together and all that in a hangar, and they were sort of getting ready for rollout and all that. Apparently they had an issue with that, and so they had to solve it, and so they needed the extra 24 hours to be able to roll the rocket out there, put it vertical, and get it ready for launch. So yeah, some wiring, right? Sometimes, that's all it takes for the launch to be delayed. So yeah.
But at least we knew the reason. But in the meantime, though, continuing on the countdown for this evening, which we should be getting into the thick of the good stuff here momentarily, starting with, of course, the preparations for propellant load, which they will be doing the poll right now. It is a silent poll where they press a button basically at their station, and it's essentially green or red, go or no. And if everything is good for prop load, then that will start at T-minus 35 minutes. That begins on stage 1 with the RP-1, the rocket propellant 1, the refined form of kerosene, along with the LOX, the liquid oxygen, the supercooled propellants there, starting to go into stage 1. Meanwhile, stage 2, getting the RP-1 load only at that same point, and that will continue until about 20 minutes, 20 seconds before launch, when they will chill down the liquid oxygen lines of what we jokingly call here the best vent, and then they'll start the LOX load on stage 2 at T-minus 16 minutes. So lots to look forward to. Hopefully we get that go for prop load, and of course, then we will all be on frost watch here. We're also going to watch out for the amazing support that you guys have already been bringing in before we even went live. Nicholas, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Wyoming Coast upgrading to a launch director member, one of the highest levels of support that we have here at NSF. That is amazing. Thank you. In addition to Capcom, you also, as the Capcom and above, getting access to the Discord. You also get your name at the end of the Flame Trench and NSF Live and things like that. So thank you, Wyoming Coast. I still love that name. John Cook, thank you for becoming a Pad Rat member. Adrian Gibbons becoming a Pad Rat member. And a $10 super chat from a good friend of the channel, Roseanne DeVasto, saying, happy to end a lovely day watching a launch from my patio, 30 feet from the Indian River, 13 miles east of Slick 40. Sure, rub it in, why don't you? But that's actually a great viewing spot anywhere along the Indian River there, the Banana River. There's some great viewing spots, so enjoy the launch. Now, I know this is a launch that we will be enjoying here soon from Slick 40, but Mechazilla was wondering, why have they never launched a Falcon Heavy mission from Slick 40? I think it would be a good idea. Max, I think there's some restrictions kind of on how the pad was built.
Well, that, and also it's a matter of what the pad can actually handle. So the launch pad over at Slick 40 was originally built for the Titan 3 and Titan 4 rockets, which are very, very powerful in themselves, but nowhere near as powerful as the Falcon Heavy is. And we can see just how hard the Falcon Heavies are are on the pad, I should say, over at LC-39A. But that flame trench was originally designed for the Saturn V rocket and then later the space shuttle, so it can take a pretty good beating. But if a Falcon Heavy were to fly, let's say for example's sake, if SpaceX was to bring the transporter erector and the base structures over from Pad A over to Slick 40 to accommodate it, and they tried launching, that flame trench likely would not hold up, nor would the rest of the pad. Even though Falcon Heavy seems rather simply just like 3 Falcon 9 cores strapped together, which really is what it is. That is still 3 times the thrust of a normal Falcon 9 rocket, and the Falcon 9 rocket already produces a ton of thrust. So essentially, it would destroy Slick 40. I think is the most, I guess, blunt way to put it. The pad could not handle it, and nor do I think SpaceX. Or I don't think SpaceX wants to convert that pad to Falcon Heavy spec anytime soon, because that pad or that rocket I shouldn't say primarily, it only flies from pad A at the moment, and we haven't seen one fly since last October with the Clipper mission from NASA. So, and we likely won't see one again until maybe Q2, Q3, maybe even Q4 next year. It is a rocket that flies very rarely, and it is actually a scary fun fact is the Starship Super Heavy full stack has flown the same amount of times that a Falcon Heavy has, both 11 flights each. And Falcon Heavy first came online back in 2018. So, yeah, we miss it. We wish it flew more. It is a beast. It is a beast of a rocket, but as it stands right now, Slick 40 honestly can't handle it.
That
There's
hurts to hear.
also there's also the fact that they have actually looked into the option of, like, this was like years ago, even before they had LC-39A. They looked at the option of putting Falcon Heavy at Slick 40, but one of the problems that they found out is the way that the flame trench is relative to where the tower, or rather the transport director is, right? So the transport director is sort of, going in this view from right to left, right, in that direction. But the flame trench is actually facing away. It's sort of like 90 degrees apart, relative to where the boosters will be, right? Like the 3 boosters will be lined up in one line, and in that same line you will have the flame trench going to the right, for example, if you're looking from above with north up top. And so that configuration, apparently they found out, is not the ideal for when you're trying to launch Falcon Heavy, because you will create like a lot of pressure there because of how the 3 boosters are attached together and the 27 Merlin engines and all that. So they found out that actually the best way for that is to have the flame trench in front of the rocket, right on the other side of the transport director. So that's the same configuration we see at LC-39A, but it's also the same configuration that we see, guess where? On the West Coast, on Slick 4 East, which was the original launch site for Falcon Heavy. That was where it was supposed to debut, but they got 39A, and so that was much better for them.
Yep. Of course, got to bring up the West Coast here, but but yeah. Plus, they have the cadence and everything down pretty well for 40 for everything Falcon 9. So why pause and have to do all the changes that they need to do over at 39A anyway? Because they have to do a bunch of changes with the fixtures and everything over at 39A when they want to launch Falcon Heavy, right?
Yep.
Cool. Good long Alex answer there.
Hey, sometimes a yep is all you need.
Isn't that a Beatles song? Yep is all you need. Oh no, that's love is all you need. Oh. We are coming up now on what should be the beginning of propellant load in about 30 seconds or so from now. Again, at that point, we will keep an eye on the rocket for frost to form. We usually see that about 4-ish minutes after the propellant load begins. And based on the SpaceX tweet that we saw earlier, it sounds like they are going to be going for the beginning of the window for this one, which is 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, or 35 minutes and 7 seconds from now. In the meantime, let's continue on with more questions. Let's see here. Mechazilla asking, when will we see Booster 100 launch? I'm saying late March. D, when do you think we'll see Booster 100?
I don't know. So I'm not super familiar with the specific timeline, but for those who aren't familiar or don't keep up with it, over on McGregor Live, we recently spotted a booster with its special 100 marker. So that's the 100th Falcon 9 booster, which is incredible. Alex, are you more familiar with the exact timelines there? But I mean, it could be somewhat soon, I would think.
It depends. I mean, one of the things recently is that they've been debuting new boosters on Starlink missions, and so it's quite complicated to pinpoint when one of these is going to be coming up. In this particular case, that booster is a regular Falcon 9 booster, like it's not configured in like Falcon Heavy configuration or anything like that. So I'm really curious where we're going to see it. That's the first question, right? And also when. So where or when, I think it might be close, right? Like if it's just a regular Falcon 9 mission, Falcon 9 booster, it may as well just be debuted on a Starlink mission, in which case it could be any week. Like in a month or so, it might just, pop up here on the East Coast or maybe on the West Coast, wherever it went. It might be there, right? So that's one of the things that we've seen recently. Again, the only exceptions being 2 Kuiper missions, which flew on Falcon 9 boosters, but they were like, one of them was a converted Falcon Heavy Center Core. Remember that, right? That one has actually launched 2 of the Kuiper missions on Falcon 9, and then there was another one that was a regular Falcon 9 booster, but it also launched one of the Kuiper missions. But everyone else, pretty much down to B1090, have been, I'm really literally looking right now at my spreadsheet, every one of those has been on a Starlink, and it's being a bit of a 50-50 between West Coast and East Coast. So yeah, we'll see what will happen with B1100.
I'm gonna be so sad if the West Coast gets that booster and we don't. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be so sad.
Same. Absolutely same. The Best Coast deserves it, aka East Coast Best Coast.
I think I see Frost, guys. Am I crazy?
I mean, yes, but let me see if we can see Frost.
I think that's Frost. I could be wrong.
It's getting there, yeah. One of the other signs that I'm looking for is the venting, the condensation.
vapor.
There you go. Yeah,
Yep,
you can see
and-
some of it
Yeah, there it goes. And we got the J art there as well. So there
in
we go.
green.
Hey, green means go. We like that here.
Yeah, but then DAS uses red, so I don't know.
I mean, red matches the ticker and all of that, but yeah, it still works.
It's no go though.
But right now it's go. For this mission, right now everything is go. So just ignore what he said. Everything's fine. But yeah, just to finish up the booster question, I believe the most recently flown one was 1097, right? So we would still have 98, and is there a 99?
Yeah, so there's 98, of course, that was tested before B1100, and that one was a Falcon Heavy Center Core, but that was completely expendable. Like, it didn't have even the landing leg connections or anything like that. They don't install the legs until it's at the launch site, but that one in particular, like, the connections themselves are always there when they pass through McGregor. They just don't have the legs, right? But again, as I was saying, this one in particular did not have those connections, so it's going to be launching expendable. But yeah, 1099 has not gone through. Sometimes they skip some of these, right? And so they jumped from 98 to 100 instead of going through B1099. I don't know why, but they tend to do this every few boosters.
Yep, so soon we will see. And yes, it does have the 100 emoji on it.
Yeah.
It's the best.
It is hysterical.
We've had meme Raptors, and now we finally have meme Falcons. It's great.
Right. I mean, we had the crown for the fleet leaders for both fairings and boosters, but yeah, I like the just 100 meme there. What I also really like is the amazing support that we've still been getting. Little Chris, thank you for the support, saying thank you for the live streams. Let's go Falcon. Well, thank you for coming to watch. That's the reason why we do it. Otherwise, we're just talking to ourselves, which, I mean, we kind of still are, but I talked to my therapist about that. Tom Johnson, thank you for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Little Chris coming in again with more. Can't wait to see your little brother fly. Do you know what I'm talking about? The booster I call Falcon's Booster's little brother and Super Heavy Big Brother. Yeah, I mean, Big Brother flying from here will be cool to actually see Super Heavy from Florida. Oh, I can't wait for that. Michael Seeley who is a photographer, I believe,
Hey.
with us here on the coast. Good friend of NSF, great photographer. Mike, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Michael, a different Michael, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. Tommy, thank you for becoming a Capcom member. Again, Capcom and above gets access to the NSF Discord, so hopefully we will see you there. Todd Johnson gifting 20 Red Team memberships. Goodness gracious. Thank you very much for that. If you got one of those memberships, definitely make sure you give Todd a thank you, or in this case, I guess for Spainsat, a gracias. And Telstar86 saying green for go, red for go ahead. I guess we'll give that to Das there. Here's one from Agroza asking, do you have the trajectory by any chance for tonight's launch? If I'm located in South Florida, would I expect to see it from the Miami area? D, I think they would have a chance, right?
I think so. So this one is going on an eastern trajectory. So anywhere along the Florida coast here, given that it's night, you should be able to see it from a long distance, and it should be an excellent view.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of these geostationary ones. They also tend to loft a little bit on the higher side with these, so you kind of get a nice long trail from it. So, yeah, anywhere along the east coast of Florida, definitely go out and take a look all the way down to Miami, so Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, then going upwards towards Daytona, and that way, definitely go outside and take a look. And again, if you do see it, send it to us on the socials. We love to see your shots. And Gabriel asking Alex, why is Spainsat heading to geostationary orbit?
Well, this one in particular, it's part of a duo of these satellites, right? There's the Spainsat-NG II satellite, and then this one is the second one. So they are essentially just built to be these massive satellites with lots of antennas and everything. This one in particular, of course, is for the military, right? So you can see there a render of what that would look like. You have one and the other. Both of them, I think one is a little bit to the east of Europe, and then another one a little bit to the west of Europe. So you have that connection, right? That full coverage over, sort of over the Atlantic and over the sort of Eastern Europe side of things. So you have full coverage of that area of the world. So you have a lot of these antennas and transponders and everything. And this type of communications, it is true that you've got higher latency than with low Earth orbit constellations, but it doesn't have to have a lot of money upfront, for example, right? Because you need to have a production capacity to be able to produce several hundreds of low Earth orbit satellites, for example, right? So that you can cover the same area with low Earth orbit satellites. Whereas, again, with geostationary communication satellites like this one, you are further away, and sometimes your telecommunications don't need to be super duper real time, if you allow me to put that very technical term, right? But that's essentially why. So it's going to geostationary orbit. It's this very special orbit where, the period of rotation of the satellite in its orbit around the Earth, it's the same as the rotation of the Earth, right? And so it's 24 hours. Technically not, it's 23 hours, 56 minutes and whatever, right? But you get what I mean, right? That it is this very special point above the Earth's surface. And there's another benefit, which you don't need to develop super complicated phase array antennas like the Starlink antennas or something like that, right? Or OneWeb or Kuiper or things like that. Just have a natural, normal antenna fixed and pointed at one point in the sky because it's always going to be there, right? And so there are certain benefits and trade-offs, I guess. But yeah, eventually, we'll see if we get to build our own low Earth orbit constellation. I don't think we're gonna get there anytime soon, though. And I say this being a Spaniard myself.
I did see someone ask, is there a difference between geostationary and geosynchronous?
Ooh, yes. So geosynchronous is just an orbit that has a that has that property of having the period, right? The time that it takes for the satellite to go around the Earth to be the same as the orbital rotation of the Earth. However, if you know a little bit more of orbital mechanics than just that, you may know that orbits are in 3D space. And the problem is, on Earth, the rotation of the Earth, it's on the equator, right? Like when you have the geostationary belt or the geostationary satellites, those are all in the equator. But you can have an orbit that goes up north, right? Like up north, and it's inclined, and then it goes south, and then it goes north. Just like when you go to low Earth orbit, right? If you put the ground track on Earth, it goes up north, down south, up north, down south, and it continues rotating the Earth in that inclined orbit. This mission in particular is sending the satellite into a transfer orbit that'll get there to geostationary orbit, but that'll be the satellite itself. So essentially, you've got the geosynchronous orbit, which is this orbit that is that has the same rotational period as the rotation of the Earth, 24 hours, right? But you also need to bring it down to the equator. Essentially, you need to bring its inclination down to 0 for it to actually be fully stationary, because otherwise it's just going to go up north, down south, up north, down south in its orbit, and it's not going to be stationary. That's not stationary. There are other satellites from other countries that do this. For example, the quasi-zenith satellites from Japan, for example, they do that, and it traces this sort of oval shape. If you plot it against the ground track, right? They plot this oval shape, and it's very useful for certain applications as well. And then there's like other types of orbits that are, I guess, half geosynchronous, if you will, like it's 12 hours instead of 24 hours. And then you put multiple of these, and you've got like the Molniya satellites from Russia and blah, blah, blah. There's many different orbits out there. I think one day we should probably make a video about this. But yeah, that's the difference between being 24 hours and actually being stationary. For that, you need to be on the equator. And that's what this satellite's going to get to with its own propulsion.
Also be good short form content too, but yeah, we'll add it to the list of 60 videos that we need to that we need to get made.
Yeah.
But we are now just under 22 minutes away from the launch of Spainsat-NG II on its way to GTO OMG on an expended Falcon 9 booster B1076. Really what? What?
I mean, you just combine OMG and continue.
Spaceflight has a lot of acronyms, okay?
There are a lot of them.
I mean, literally, this is at Slick 40, Space Launch Complex 40, Cape Canaveral SFS, as you see on the ticker there, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, NG2, Next Generation 2 satellite.
I mean,
F9, dare I say?
Exactly.
just talking about the geosynchronous and everything, like there's GSO, GEO, and GTO. So GTO is the transfer orbit to get you to either geosynchronous or geostationary. Or you've got GSO, which is geosynchronous orbit, and then you've got GEO, geostationary Earth orbit. Like the ways that you can have so many of these just with this type of orbit alone, it's amazing.
How about GTHO? Get the heck out. I don't know. But how about Best Vent as well? And there it is, right on time on your screen. The 20-minute, 20-second vent, right on time. Max, what is the purpose of this vent?
So essentially, the purpose of this big vent, or best vent as we also call it, is essentially SpaceX is thermally conditioning the prop lines inside of the transporter erector in preparation for stage 2 liquid oxygen loading. It is best to have any of your plumbing and materials inside the TE that will have locks or any sort of super chill propellant flowing through it at the same or very near the same temperatures as the actual fluid going through it. Because if not, that will cause flash gassing and damage a whole bunch of your equipment, which would create a headache and a bad day for a lot of people. And what you are seeing is just the excess, now gaseous oxygen, or GOX, now venting out of the TE as that overflows, and the flow of LOX continues into those lines. And that will continue up until about T-minus 16.5 minutes. And when that disappears, that will be our visual indicator that stage 2 liquid oxygen load is underway. That cloud also doubles as a good visual indicator for what the weather is doing. And as you can see, the cloud is flowing off to the right there. There is a bit of a north to south breeze, at least where the launch pad is. So over here, south of the port here in Cape Canaveral, the wind is coming just off of the north and just off of the Atlantic. So that is lining up with what how the cloud is behaving. So that is what that is, and that will continue for about 2 more minutes.
There we go. And yeah, it's not a cape at the Cape tonight, but it's still very cool.
Not
seeing
quite.
that.
Well, a very thin one, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a flapping cape, not one that's kind of just hanging around at this time, too. Anyway, so yeah, we're continuing to count down now, 18 minutes or so until tonight's launch. And as a reminder, because these are the super chilled propellants, that means that they are committed to that T0 18 minutes from now. So it will either go at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time or it will not. There is no in between, even though it was about a 4-hour window.
Even go is also an acronym. It means going out. Because it's going to go out, right?
What?
I've never heard that
mind.
before.
I'm just making it up for the
the
joke. Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I thought it was a very technical term, though.
Well, he made jokes. People are saying GTO is the type of car, yes, but EJ isn't on to
It is.
nerd out to it.
It's a Pontiac, but it's also a Ferrari, or more multiple Ferraris, I should say.
See, there you go. This is the Ferrari of rockets, then. And then the other thing I see people pointing out that I don't think most people realize the history of it, they were talking about earlier, is the Space Coast itself. The area code. If you're dialing a phone number there, what are the first 3 numbers that you have to dial, Max? Or Max mute, or D, whoever's not muted.
I can jump in there and say that the sort of Titusville, Cape Canaveral area is very fortunate in that it has the 321 area code.
I absolutely love that. And unfortunately, the person who helped pioneer it just passed away earlier this year. But it was actually someone petitioned and said, look, we are on the Space Coast. We do all the countdowns for launch. Why do we not have that as the area code? So they petitioned for the 321 area code. So anywhere around the Space Coast, if you need to call someone and you need the area code, it is indeed 321. And fun fact, the person who did originally have that number, I think I still have their business card somewhere. They got first choice of number and chose 321 Liftoff as their phone number. Fun little story there. Also fun is the fact, again, this is expendable, and I say fun loosely on that, but Alex Severin's wondering, can we expect any onboard views of the booster during re-entry and if it survives ocean impact?
Highly unlikely. So there's 2 reasons for that. The first one is experience, because it's not the first time they have expended a booster and they have not shown any views. The second one is also the fact that the whole reason the booster survives re-entry is because first it's a controlled entry, right? When you actually don't control the entry of the booster, happens what happened early in the program, which they just tried to recover it with parachutes. Like, he didn't have any cold gas thrusters or any grid fins or anything, so they just did stage separation. They had parachutes on the in the intrastage, and then they sort of hoped that the booster survived re-entry and pop out of the parachute and splash down in the ocean. That did not work because in both occasions the booster just burn up on reentry. So that's what will happen if you just let the booster be and not do anything with it. It'll probably burn up, and so I will guess you will not see that booster being intact through reentry, especially during expendable missions. They completely drain the tanks during the ascent burn, so it gets quite a velocity, right, when it goes downrange, and so that means it's actually going through reentry even faster than you will see on a reusable mission. Because again, reusable missions, they reserve a little bit of that propellant to be able to return. So not only they have the entry burn and everything, but also that entry condition is even slower than that you will see on an expendable mission. So yeah, I will not expect anything from that other than a lot of heat and everything, and probably the signal cuts out.
Yeah, also, when you think about it, if you look at the replays from Flight 11, we were one of the only ones that actually had the booster exploding when it landed. All of the ones from SpaceX cut off, and then as for the ship, they all cut them off before the explosion. Where is the earth-shattering kaboom? So, yeah, very unlikely they would show that, unfortunately.
If you watched Flight 9, I think it was, right, with Ship 35, and what happened to it, where it was like burning up and everything, and then suddenly the signal cut out, that will be very close to what you will see with the booster, although with a lot less heat and a lot less velocity, but it's still not meant to re-enter at those speeds.
Yeah, it would be really cool to see it. And what's funny is, I'm just going to throw this out there. This is a military communication satellite for Spain in Spainsat-NG II. And SpaceX, I believe we will see payload deployed. They're totally fine with showing the payload. We've showed pictures of it throughout the broadcast tonight. And yet, an Amazon Kuiper launch on Falcon 9, we don't actually get to see anything from the second stage other than telemetry. Just saying.
Yeah. To be fair, it's not like you can gather a lot of. I'm in the camp of people that it's like, I don't think you can gather a lot of data from a regular. It's a regular communication satellite, right? It's not like it's carrying super deep secret technology. It's just a few antennas. The thing that's going to be kept secret, of course, is things like the encryption of the signal and things like that. It's going to have all of these extra safety features in terms of the software and encryptions and blah blah blah, all of that very techie stuff about signals that I don't understand at all, but it's going to be integrated in this satellite. That is not something that you can really see from looking at the payload, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is fair, I guess. But I would say same with Kuiper, but that's a whole nother debate. Speaking of expendable stuff here, though, Max, there's a question of saying, do you think there will ever be an expended Super Heavy from Unplugged?
I mean, SpaceX has a fully expendable Starship Super Heavy and also Starship Upper Stage listed, so we presume that is going to be a possibility. Although to fully expend a Starship Super Heavy launch vehicle, that is going to require quite the hefty payload, and I struggle to imagine what that could be beyond very large modules for a very large space station or some more normal sized modules of what we're used to, going out to either the moon or to Mars. But in theory, it is possible, although we have no idea what that will look like at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again, technically they've all been expended so far.
They also technically have not reached orbit, although they very well could have.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point as well, but we'll see. Especially once they up the cadence and they get these heavier and heavier payloads, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see them start expending it. Which it's a shame. It's nice seeing things that are built well and last a long time, and I don't know, look pretty cool too. Kind of like the trucker hats that we have available at shop.nasaspaceflight.com.
Oh my God, sir, that was brilliant.
Thank you. I mean, they are really well built. Max, these are some of your favorites, right? You were just saying in the back channel that you legit wear these.
I legitimately wear these all the time. I have two green ones, and that is my favorite color. And the one I have is the one on the very left there. They are actually really good hats, and I am a bit of a hat snob. I know when one's a bad one, and these actually check out. They are very nice, and I wear them just about every day.
Yeah, they are legitimate trucker hats too. They're the real deal. They're really nice. I like them. So they're available at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, along with other awesome merch items for you to check out: prints, shirts, patches, stickers, some cool designs there. So make sure you check out. There's a lot of fun stuff at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. And if you're not signed up for the newsletter, you definitely should, because there's some cool info in there and a lot of interesting behind the scenes stuff and talks with some of the photographers about their work. So definitely check it out. All right. We are now about 9 minutes to go here. Max, I know we need to let you go because you're off site, right? You're not at the press site for this one, but we should expect some really cool views from you.
Absolutely. So I am on the beaches of Cape Canaveral this evening, hoping to get a great view as Falcon 9 heads downrange. And so I'm just on the beach enjoying the view. Lots of people gathering on the beach now, which is a lovely sight to see. Everyone coming out to enjoy it. But it is time for me to go. For me to go and get some cameras ready. So thank you very much, everybody, and I will see y'all on the other side.
Looking forward to it. And I know D is also out there getting the cameras ready, so we'll let the field team go do their thing. D, we will check in with you after lunch. All right, continuing along here now. So again, Alex, as our resident Spaniard, for people who may just be joining as we get to 8 minutes to launch, can you kind of give a brief summary of what Spainsat-NG II actually is?
Yeah, so it is a geostationary communication satellite for the Spanish military. This was built by Hisdesat, well, built by Airbus for Hisdesat, one of the communications companies in Spain. And so it's part of this whole two satellite system, right? We've got Spainsat Generation one that was launched earlier this year, and then this is the second one of those two. So this is going to be part of that two satellite system. Again, getting coverage pretty much from the middle of the Atlantic all the way out there to the middle of Asia, getting a wide range of coverage with these two satellites there. So yeah, it's going to be this big satellite, right? It's about 6 metric tons in mass. So it's a really huge satellite that needs to be pushed out there. For this reason, the first stage for this mission, B1076, it's going to fly for a 22nd and last time. So instead of being recovered, we're going to have to bid adieu to this booster. So hopefully, its work has been well taken, with all of these many different flights at this booster. I've seen it fly with my own eyes as well, because it flew the Türksat 6A mission, so it's gonna be missed.
Yeah, it really is. It's a shame that we're getting rid of that, but at least we'll have the satellite in orbit. That is the plan, at least. And as you pointed out, this one is going to operate at 29 degrees east, and that will complement the other one, which is at 30 degrees west, to give that wide coverage there. And the second one to be launched by a Falcon 9, which the Falcon 9 right now, the engines have been chilling down on them ahead of launch. And Alex, why do we chill down the engines?
Well, because that liquid oxygen that flows through them, it's really, really cold. And before that chill down sequence begins, the pumps are just essentially at the temperature that is in Florida right now, which whatever it is, it's a lot hotter than the temperature of liquid oxygen, right? So yeah, they chill down that pump, that the liquid oxygen pump, by flowing a little bit of that liquid oxygen through the pump, and it gets it conditioned for flight, for ignition, hopefully in a little bit under 5 minutes, 6 minutes from now.
That is what we are looking forward to seeing. We are getting that much closer to the launch this evening. Really quickly, let me thank Russians for upgrading to a Red Team membership. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. So now we are getting into the nitty-gritty of the countdown here. About 5 minutes to go. That is when we will start seeing them wrap up a bunch of the propellant loads on board Falcon 9. But of course, before that, we will hopefully see the retraction of the Strongback, the TE, the transporter erector. So that is the metallic structure that is to the right of the rocket, kind of behind the crew tower in this view. But there are some yellow clamps kind of underneath the fairing that will open up. Then it will retract 1.8 degrees So it's a slight incline backwards, and that means all the communications cables and all of the other data cables, satellite cables, air conditioning, sort of, so to speak, cables, can still stay connected, but it leans it back so that when it does launch, it will throw all the way back and get out of the way in time. So we should be seeing that happening any second now. And then that will be followed by the wrapping up of propellant loads. And then hopefully at the T-minus 1 minute mark, Falcon 9 entering startup with the onboard computers taking control, tanks pressurizing to flight levels, and at 45 seconds, we should expect that go for launch. The weather has been absolutely perfect tonight. The 45th Weather Squadron gave it a greater than 95% chance of favorable weather for tonight. And everything looking good so far. So now under 4 minutes to go here. I mean, this is the exciting part of the count here, Alex. But if anything happens, that would be the end of the launch attempt, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people are asking about the trajectory. This launch is heading straight east out of the Cape. The main reason for that is what we were talking about before, the difference between geosynchronous being 24 hours, right, of orbital of the period of the orbit, versus actually geostationary, which you need to be around the equator, and that's 0 inclination. So the lowest inclination you can achieve from any launch pad is just by launching straight east, and so that allows them to save a lot of time and a lot of fuel on the satellite, because it's going to be partly the job of the satellite to remove a lot of that inclination of its orbit. So, yep, straight east out of the Cape, and I even gave you the reason why.
Yep, and don't forget, you can also use the Next Spaceflight app. There is a way that you can actually see the trajectory on there with data powered by flightclub.io. So you can see exactly where it's going to be in relation to the Cape and the direction it will be going. 2.5 minutes to go now. At what point, which propellant wraps up first here, Alex?
Well, the propellant, it's the first, the RP1, that was already wrapped up at T-minus 20 minutes on the second stage and T-minus 6 minutes on the first stage. Liquid oxygen load has wrapped up on the first stage, and it's about to finish as well on the second stage, which means all 4 main tanks of Falcon 9 should be getting fully loaded ahead of liftoff, just 2 minutes from now.
Beautiful. And again, we will get a very good indication of that happening because we will see something very similar to the 20-minute, 20-second vent. That is another time when they purge the lines, although instead of chilling down the lines, it is a way to clear out any excess gases or items or basically anything in there, because you don't want any liquid oxygen still kind of hanging around inside those lines.
And there's
as
the
it
vent.
flies by. Yep. Also gives a good indication of the weather there. There's a little bit of a breeze. But other than that, everything looking good as we approach 90 seconds to go here until launch of B1076 for the final time, and the launch of Spainsat New Generation 2 on its way to geostationary transfer orbit. So next up should be the final, tanks pressurizing up to flight levels, as well as the onboard computers taking control of the countdown at 1 minute. That is called Falcon 9 entering startup. And then about 15 seconds after that, we should expect the final go for launch from the launch director. And Falcon 9 should now be in startup.
It is indeed in startup now.
And then we will wait for that go for launch coming momentarily. Alex, I know you'll let us know once we get that. Should be getting that in about 5 seconds or so here.
And go for launch. Mucha suerte.
Right. There we go. Yes, thank you, Alex, for that. Spainsat ready to fly in about 30 seconds from now from Space Launch Complex 40, the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station on an expendable Falcon 9. 20 seconds to go. Of course, once it launches, we will be quiet and let you listen to the beautiful launch audio. Coming up now, 10 seconds to go. The Rainbirds at the base of the rocket will fire up and pour water towards the base of the vehicle. That will be followed by the engine ignition, which we should be seeing, and liftoff of Falcon 9. Adios to Spainsat as well as to that Falcon 9 booster. Gorgeous sound tonight as Falcon 9 passes through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure, pushing down on the vehicle as it climbs its way up to orbit. A beautiful launch, and what a sound tonight. The engines with an absolute amazing roar. And again, as it gets higher up, the atmosphere kind of thins out, so as a result, the plume will expand. The colors tonight on point. And again, we have max
cool.
downrange and D from the press site getting these different views.
And a reminder that because today's launch is fully expendable, or at least for the booster, because the fairings are going to be recovered, we'll talk about that later, the first stage burn will be longer than usual, so don't be surprised for that, right? Because they're going to burn those engines to tank depletion, essentially.
Exactly, yes. So for this one, MECO, main engine cutoff, should be coming up in about 20-ish seconds from now, at about 2 minutes and 40 seconds into flight, followed by first and second stage separation, and then stage 2 MVAC ignition. So still a couple more seconds on this, flying through the sky. Gorgeous
Look at that.
colors as always.
Gonna keep an eye, and there we go.
That's MECO. And then we should have first and second stage separation. And there is ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine. So stage 2, bringing Spainsat into its geostationary transfer orbit. B1076 doing its final farewell as it now gets ready to splash down into the Atlantic one final time. And there we go. Look at that. You can see the beautiful colors of that plume expansion. The colors tonight on that, Alex. I mean, this is kind of lunar jellyfish territory here, it seems like.
Yeah. And we should see 2 little dots popping up soon, because those are going to be the fairing halves for this mission.
Yep. And those you said will be recovered. Which vessel is out there tonight?
Yeah, so despite the booster being expended, there we go.
There we
I
go.
think that was the fairing separation. Despite the booster being expended, the fairings can still be reused and will actually be trying a parachuted splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean, and will be recovered by fairing recovery vessel Doug.
There we go. So it's still somewhat reusable, at least.
Yeah.
And
In fact, this one, I mean, these 2 fairing halves have flown already for, this will be the 26th and the 16th flight, I think, was the, 28th and 16th, excuse me. Yeah, for these fairing halves. I had the notes here, but I misread them.
and counting, as we now hit 4.5 minutes into flight. It's weird not talking about the first stage and what's happening next in terms of entry burn and landing burns, but again, there is none. So this one will continue to burn till about 8 minutes into flight, and that is when we should see SECO 1, second engine cut off 1. And we say SECO 1 because there is another burn scheduled before they deploy it, right?
Yeah, so after the first burn, what will happen, I mean, the whole purpose of this burn is just to get first to orbit, right? A low Earth orbit. And that burn, as you said, it should wrap up around 8 minutes into flight. And then roughly 18 minutes later, roughly T plus 27 or something like that, we're going to get another burn for another minute or so of that MVAC engine. And that'll be the burn that will put the satellite from low Earth orbit. It'll send it to this geosynchronous transfer orbit, which, as we talked about earlier, is this sort of oval-shaped orbit that will transfer, right? That's in the name. It's not there just because, right? It's in the name, right? It is a transfer orbit that will put the satellite in the right orbit, for a lack of a better word, to be able to get itself into that geostationary orbit. So that's essentially where we get to, hopefully in about 22 minutes from now or so. That'll be the end of that burn. And then the Spainsat satellite will be deploying roughly T plus 36 minutes.
There we go. So already a half hour from deploy, and we are just 6 minutes into flight. You gotta love the efficiency there. And shout out, by the way, to both the teams on the ground doing the tracking as well as the remote tracking done with our Space Coast Live cameras out there as well. So shout out to the teams doing amazing work tonight. Daniel, Steven, and Gage over on the Space Coast cameras. And then, of course, D and Max out there in person downrange.
And as Jack likes to say, I mean, this thing is holding the mail, right? Because you can see there the speed is climbing, already 2 Gs of force. It's going very far downrange, and I think we just lost it, in fact, over the horizon. Because as it goes further out, you know, the Earth is curved, haha, and you just lose it over the horizon because it goes far beyond the eyesight.
I'm not going to start the debate. But yeah,
I don't think it's a debate. It's a fact.
it's not.
It's
You're
round.
right. You're right. But now we are less than a minute away from the expected cutoff here. And that will, again, as we mentioned, be the first. So second engine cutoff 1. And so far, already pulling almost 3 Gs, 162 kilometers in altitude, almost 23,000 kilometers an hour. And there it is, 23,000.
You'll also see there on the engine graphic on the bottom right, the sort of thing, the ring up top, that is the amount of propellant remaining on the stage. And you'll see that there's going to be a substantial amount compared to, for example, a Starlink mission, but that's on purpose because that's the amount of propellant that is going to be burned later. So that's the one that's going to put this into a geostationary transfer orbit.
Exactly. Yep. It's not the one and done. And we should be seeing shutdown any second now.
And
Again,
there
the
it
numbers,
is.
beautiful. The numbers they give us are rough estimates. Obviously, they do it based off of actual data coming from the rocket. And that's what
And
we like to see.
nominal orbital insertion as well called out. So that's amazing. That's what we should hear. And that's great.
Beautiful. One step closer to deployment of Spainsat-NG II. Beautiful. And I'm sure our field teams had a beautiful view as well. I don't know if we have anyone back from the field yet. Max, do we have you?
I just came back to my microphone. Yes, you have me indeed.
Oh, it was good timing. How was that tonight?
That was beautiful, and yeah, it was a more of a creative choice to come down to the South Beaches here tonight to get a view of the launch. Stunning as always. It launched. I always forget how far inland Slick 40 is from this perspective. I had my streak shot cameras lined up, and based off of some data from Flight Club from Declan Murphy, whose data we also use on Next Spaceflight, by the way. It showed that the pad was very far to the left, and it was behind some of the condos here. And it's like, that can't be right. There's no way at all. And sure enough, I just checked my screenshot, and the data was correct. So shot isn't perfect. I'll work on it. Maybe I'll post it tonight. Maybe I'll post it tomorrow, or maybe I never will. But we'll see. But beautiful as always. A ton of people came out onto the beach and were enjoying it. Everyone was oohing and awing as it was going downrange, as the plume was expanding and changing color. And then once it cut off, there was a whole bunch of applause as well. So it's always great to see the public out here showing their support.
Absolutely. As routine as it kind of seems to be over at the Space Coast, there's always still that enthusiasm and excitement, at least. So it's nice to see that. Nice to see the locals and, of course, the visitors get to see launches. We always say, if you're coming down to the Space Coast now, people are like, oh, well, is there a chance maybe I'll see the launch if I'm spending like 5 or 6 days down there? Yes. Yes, there's almost a 100% chance that there will be a launch attempt during that time. So definitely get a good view.
100%. And also, one of the benefits of being this far downrange when it's going to GTO is if your exposure is correct, you can actually see the actual body of the rocket too, as the light from the exhaust reflects off the fairing and then back off of the body of the rocket as well. And hopefully that was showing on my angle. But yeah, just an absolute stunner tonight.
Yeah, you can see the kind of ripples in the plume as the fairing half separated. Love that shot. And there we go. For the people wondering, the first stage was expended. I see a lot of people asking about that. Stage 1 was expended intentionally, so no recovery on that one. The fairings are on their way back down still to be recovered by Doug. And now we wait for the next engine ignition for NG2 before its deployment. So, Alex, what do we have still to come, as we also have our replays coming soon? So stick around to see that.
Well, this map is actually nice to show what's coming up, because the blue line is the current orbit, right? So that's where the satellite and the second stage are right now. If they didn't do anything, then it will continue orbiting in this orbit, right? And so you can see there the blue orbit sort of continues that blue line, because it's sort of extended in time. It's extended in time. But then you have the gray one, and the gray one is the target. So they are right now on target, but as we move, you might see this gray line sort of getting away, and there's going to be one point in which it's going to go away quite quickly, and that's the one where they're going to be doing the burn, and that should hopefully occur in about 15 minutes from now. There's going to be another burn, and that's going to put the satellite into that geosynchronous transfer orbit that we were talking about. Again, it's this sort of oval-shaped orbit, right? With the apogee, probably for this mission in particular, it's going to be roughly 60,000 kilometers in altitude. And then the perigee, the lowest point in that orbit of that oval shape, right? It's going to be closer to Earth, roughly 200 and something kilometers, if I were to guess. But yeah, so that's the next thing, that burn that will do that transfer. And then after that burn, roughly 8 minutes after that, we'll have the separation of the satellite from the second stage.
Right. And, oh boy, I totally just forgot what I was going to say.
I stole all of your words because
Yeah,
my
and
answers are
there we
long.
go. And in terms of onboard propulsion, obviously Falcon 9 isn't doing all of the work, right? There is still propulsion on board to get it into its final spot.
Yeah, so the Spainsat satellites, they use essentially a bit of a combination of different propulsion systems. The first one, of course, the main one that they use to get to that place, to geostationary orbit, is electric propulsion. So electric propulsion is ion thrusters, right? But they are very, very efficient, which means you don't need a lot of propellant and things like that, which allows you to have a lot of the satellite room, like the size of the satellite, dedicated to payloads, to antennas and solar panels and all that. But on the other hand, you've got the problem that they are very low thrust, so very efficient again, right? Not a lot of propellant tanks or anything like that, or a big sort of bulky propellant tank that you need to haul up to that orbit. However, as I said, it's very low thrust, which means it's going to take quite a bit of time to get there. But once they are there, they use their own hydrazine thrusters and things like that, hypergolic thrusters, which have a little bit more. They are less efficient, but they are more efficient for things like maneuvering and things like that, and taking. Basically being in charge of the attitude of the spacecraft instead of getting it to different orbits. So they have this sort of dual way of doing things in terms of the control of the spacecraft.
Yeah, I mean, the satellite itself is over 6,000 kilograms already. So the last thing you need is to have to add more propellant tanks and things to it as well.
Yep. And again, that's one of the things, the whole reason it can be this so-called, super powerful, and a lot of the recent big satellites are 6-7 metric tons. Normally tend to be like this with the high efficient engines that are ion engines and things like that. Those allow them to be able to not take much propellant and therefore dedicate those big bulky satellites to payload. And payload can weigh a lot. Deployable antennas and whatnot, really big solar arrays and all that. So yeah.
Exactly. What's also big is the support that we continue to get. Mark getting an item from the shop saying thanks for the great coverage as always. I'll have a chance to travel to Starbase in very early in January. Even if there's not anything going on, is it worth driving down there? What can you see from the roads? Never seen a launch before, nor a Starbase. LOL. Getting the Methalox at night, photographer's delight. Love the New Glenn shot there. Max, I would say it's still worth going down there, even if there's no launch, right?
I was just going to pipe in there and just say yes, it is 100% worth it. The part of the Gigabay is probably going to be up at that point, and the view towards Megabay 1 and Megabay 2 is probably going to be obstructed. So hopefully you'll have some kind of view towards Megabay 2, but even if you don't, being able to be so close to the launch complex and also the Star Factory as well is an absolute treat. So even if that view is obstructed and there isn't a launch happening at that point, it is 100% still worth going and just kind of walking around, soaking it all in, and just really just drinking it all in, really, because there really is no other place on Earth like it, even here. And the biggest comparison I have is, I mean, it's an obvious fact in that obviously Starbase is mostly public property, whereas here at both the Kennedy Space Center and the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, that is clearly government property, and not just anyone can drive into the gates and go visit the launch pads and get super close. We are very lucky in that both the Space Force and NASA allow credentialed media certain opportunities to photograph launches and certain other imagery opportunities and interviews. But those are all scheduled and very rare by comparison to what you can do in Starbase from just public property. So if you can do it, 100%, it is 100% worth it.
There's also a good chance that around January you might start seeing some of the version 3 vehicles, either booster or ship. Perhaps, for example, being out there at Massey's undergoing cryo, or maybe the ship undergoing static fire, things like that, right? Like, you have a non-zero chance of at least seeing some vehicle either at the pad or at Massey's getting tested and things like that, right? I would not expect a launch campaign around that time, though. But at least getting tested, you have a non-zero chance of seeing that around that time. So, go.
Not with that attitude, sir.
It's still cool. I mean, you can get to see these things up close. I think that's amazing.
One day I will make it down there. But as from here at Astra saying excellent launch tonight, the colors were so much better than usual. That benefit of going a little bit higher and having a little bit longer until Miko is very nice. And in fact, we have the replays to show that. And as we get to these replays, Kay as well, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Very much appreciated. So here we go, live on the right, replay on the left there for this one. But yeah, and of course at the very end, we will also have DY slow-mo to look forward to. So stay all the way through satellite deployment if you want to see that. Absolutely
Artificial sunrise.
I mean, it is. We say that all the time, yeah, and you see the videos, but once you actually see it in person and you see the whole sky and the whole everything around you light up, it's like, yeah, it's pretty dead on. And then, of course, from the port, which if you're ever at Port Canaveral, another good spot to view the launches from. And of course, Rusty is a great spot to get a bite from as well, which is where we have our 2 fleet cams. And also, fun fact, that's basically right where they do all of the work processing Falcon 9 anyway. So once the boosters, when they do come back, RIP 1076, this is where they'll come back to and they'll remove it. And now, just recently, we saw the the stand finally for the Falcon booster, right?
What stand?
Wasn't there a stand that they've been putting the booster on now, given how many are coming back?
The second one, yeah.
Yeah.
They have one already, but then they built recently a second one. By the way, on the right-hand side, we may see shortly the telemetry updating as they go over a new ground station. So don't be surprised about that if the numbers jump. Because I know recently we had a bit of a lot of people were in a bit of a panic over telemetry stopping and things like that. Anyways.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally normal and expected. Even though there's Starlinks for other satellites, I don't think this one uses Starlink for communications. It still uses ground-based, also because of the whole military part of it. This from our remote cameras that we have at the press site at the Kennedy Space Center. So yeah, it's weird because we have the views of Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, but these cameras are technically over at Kennedy Space Center press site. It's a weird delineation, Max, right, of where we hit Space Force and where we hit KSC, but it is a distinct difference.
Yes, and they are two separate pieces of property with two different with a different ownership as well, which is also worth noting because it is not it may be one piece of land technically, but in terms of land ownership, they are two separate pieces of property and they are managed quite differently. Whereas KC is mostly open to what happens by comparison to the Space Force, but the Space Force being a DoD or Department of Defense installation, that is a lot of that, or mostly most of that is behind closed doors, and we don't get to see. So yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't get them confused. People will call you out. Just like if you say LC versus SLC. So Launch Complex versus Space Launch Complex.
Or even the KSC used to be called Cape Kennedy, which I think that was the thing 20, 30 years ago, Sawyer. Is that correct? Does that sound right?
I mean, they changed that, I think, in the 80s-ish, I think it was.
Oh, was it?
Remember.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly when they switched it, but it was not the most recent. But yeah, again, distinct difference. It's not the case anymore. They changed the name back. But yes, this was a track by Gage, doing this one remotely with one of our cameras that we had at the press site. That was pretty cool. You know what else is pretty cool, Alex?
I bet it's not easy to gauge where you have to point the camera.
Oh, that was good.
Oh, jeez.
I'm sure Gage has never heard that one before, but but yeah, you know what else we like? Fun stats, Alex. I know you've got some fun stats for this, right?
There we go. Now the telemetry got updated. I was looking at telemetry. There we go. 300 and
threatening
something.
that he will mute you.
Hey, no, that's not cool. But yeah, so today, because we have a little bit of time here before the second stage relights again, right? Before the second burn. So I thought it was interesting to mention. There we go. That's the engine. The venting is normal. It's in chill down, preparing for that burn coming up in about 3 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I thought this was an interesting mission, not just because of what it's launching, but because of the amount of launches that we've seen so far this year. This is SpaceX's 139th launch of the year, which means it's already one launch more than last year. Total. That's Falcon 9 and Starship.
And we still have about 2.5 months to go.
And there's still 2.5 months to go, but also because there have been 5 Starship missions, right, on in 2025. That means this is the 134th Falcon 9 launch of the year, basically matching the amount of launches by Falcon last year at 134. So, and it is October 23rd in the Space Coast and October 24th here in Europe. So, yeah. They're beating the records.
I think that's safe to say. Absolutely. Oh man, the pace is unbelievable. Also, shout out to the other track that we had that was from Steven, who's one of our new SCL trackers and operators over there. And again, don't forget we have Space Coast Live, our 24/7 live cameras out there covering everything with the Space Coast all the time. We are now coming up shortly on that burn, right?
There goes the ice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they vent that chill down because you're pumping a lot of this liquid oxygen through the pump. Well, not pumping it. They're just flowing that through the pump, and then they vent it and it becomes solid. And so it there's these chunks of solid oxygen or SOx as they call it.
Yeah.
Hey, Max used GOX before, so I can use SOx.
Yeah, I think.
Oh my
Sure, we'll
God.
go with it.
GOX is
You
a
did.
real acronym that I've literally heard flight controllers say before. GOX is real.
I'm no socks or socks or whatever it's called. It also is used. Believe me.
Stocks?
Yeah, it was used during AMO6. Look it up. Let's
Oh my
watch the
God.
burn.
Oh, yeah. Well, Amos 6 is
Yeah.
great, right? That's a great reference.
Nothing at all happened there that was exciting, right?
Yeah, no, not
Nothing
at
at all.
But there's still the D slow-mo to come, and I think we had one other person out there with a track that we haven't seen yet. I can't remember his name, but I think whoever they are, maybe we'll see their track too. Max, do you remember who?
Can't quite put. No, I don't. I have no idea.
Oh boy, but yeah,
Oh, coming
Max's
up.
track still to come.
Coming up on SES2.
Few more seconds, and there we go.
There we go.
Ooh.
That second end and start. And again, we're used to the other ones, which are kind of short for the Starlinks that are a couple seconds. This one's about a minute long, right?
Yeah. Watch for the G's to build up, and roughly at 4, they start throttling down that engine, and trying to keep the forces roughly 4.5 G's. And also watch the speed climb as well.
There we go.
And
4
geez,
Gs.
Louise.
Oh my God, Sawyer.
Oh gee.
Well, I say,
No,
oh my
4G, not
God.
OG.
I was literally about to go, geez, Louise. I should not be talking.
Yeah, now it's gonna
That's
use up
almost
all of the
5
remaining.
Gs, by the way. There we go. And
Yeah.
now it goes back down.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna use all of that remaining propellant. You can see there the propellant gauge around the engine.
Yeah, the
engine,
rightmost graphic.
Yeah, exactly. At the bottom.
420 kilometers.
we have
And
it.
Shut down.
there it is.
Already
Beautiful.
over Africa. Oh my goodness.
You can see the change in the trajectory a little bit, because they not only did this sort of raise of the orbit, right, but they also changed a little bit the inclination. The majority of that work of changing the inclination and raising the orbit and everything will be done by the satellite itself, but they also try to do some of it here, so that, helping it a little bit more.
And so now the next thing that we will see on the right side will be deployment in a couple of minutes. And on the left side, we have Max's track of the launch as well, which was another spectacular one. And I could kind of tell when it was yours, because we're used to the press site, which is more of it going eastward. This one, you're sort of south of it. So it gets that kind of side-on angle, which we rarely get, but is one of my favorites, is to see it side-on rather than kind of under it.
Agreed. Yeah. So yeah, normally from the press site, if it's going to, whether it's going south or going to a geostationary orbit, it's more or less flying directly away from you. And because we are south of the launch pad, it was flying more or less perpendicular to my location, which made it all the more better, because you can see more accurately the shape and size and color of the plume change as it ascends higher and higher into the upper atmosphere. So a very underrated, I think, perspective for a launch. I think is anywhere that's either north or south of the pad if it's going directly east.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, I want to be up close for the launch. Which, yes, it is very spectacular for the liftoff portion itself. But for the rest of the flight, there's something about being offsite, downrange, that you get a really great view from it, especially for the northeastern ones. If you go kind of north of the launch site, and once they switch back to the southeasterly Starlinks going south of the launch site, you get some really, really cool perspective shots.
100%.
I think the satellite and Falcon 9 are about to enter orbital sunrise, because I'm seeing in some of the views the horizon being lit up.
Yeah, it's starting to look light. I mean, Max, was that kind of a lunar jellyfish that we saw out there a bit, or is that just from the camera exposure being upped?
I don't know if, well, the moon actually set maybe right after sunset or so. and it was a tiny crescent, so I can't really imagine that offering much illumination, considering the rocket at that point was on the other side of the planet compared to where the moon was. So that was all au naturel camera exposure and how it looked more or less to the naked eye.
Yeah, because we'll see it momentarily here. There's the second engine start 1 from earlier on the replay side. And then as soon as that happens, just the expansion as B1076 goes into the plume before going into the drink. You can see now that expansion on there, Max. That's what it looked like, huh?
I mean, I can't tell you what it looked like with my eyes because I was completely looking at my screen. But yeah, I peeked up a couple of times, like just to see like, how pretty it was and how vibrant it was, and it looked just about like this. It was absolutely beautiful. It caught me off guard, honestly.
Oh.
Yeah, just wait for
Look
fairing
to
stuff.
the right.
Oh,
the sunrise?
What?
Yep. Look at that.
Oh,
Wow.
That is not the engine bell glowing. By the way, there was the payload fairing step on the left side. That's not the heat of the engine bell. That is the light hitting the engine bell.
That
Look
is
at
an
that.
MVAC eclipse right there.
Wow. I know that's great commentary from us of, wow, look at that. Wow.
Wow,
It's true.
ooh, ah.
Yeah, it's like a fireworks show. If you don't go, ooh, oh my gosh. It looks black and white, baroque kind of here.
Yeah, it literally does.
Ceci n'est pas an engine bell. And we're about
Eclipse.
we're about 2.5 minutes away, by the way, from the payload deployment sequence. Alex, what do they use to deploy this?
It's probably just springs. It's usually just that. It's very low impact, if you will, rather than explosives and things like that. And it's also a system that you can essentially reuse. Not reuse as in, you recover the second stage and now you can reuse it, but like you can test it on the ground and it doesn't break, right? With explosives and fungible nuts and things like that, for example, then you use it once on the ground, you test it, and great for you, but yeah, that's it. Right. Here you can test it on the ground and then actually use it in flight again, which is really nice because that allows you to be able to actually, test it as you fly.
That
Very
is exactly
famous
pretty.
expression.
Yeah, and it seems like it would be something so complex and all of that, but it's literally just, yeah, spring. So we should be coming up less than a minute now from payload deploy. And you can see there on the bottom right, this is happening right on the southeastern part of Africa, heading towards Madagascar.
1,000 kilometers in altitude already.
Good lord, and climbing rapidly.
Yep.
And 33,800 kilometers an hour in velocity. So we should be seeing that deploy any second now and listening for the call out as well.
And there it
We
is.
have it.
Beautiful payload deploy. Spainsat-NG II on its way to join its companion, Spainsat-NG II, to help provide military communications for the country of Spain. Beautiful
Payload
flight.
deploy confirmed.
Good call out.
Yay.
It's what we like to see right over Madagascar. The satellite is deployed now. Also, Alex, what's going to happen to this stage? Is this one where they can burn it back down, or is it too high up?
It is too high up, but it's actually going to be brought back for a reentry. This is one of the things that they've done recently, where they are going to be able to do a deorbit burn for the second stage to be deorbited. In fact, it's gonna re-enter roughly where it is right now, flying over, right? Sort of east of Madagascar. But it's gonna be on the next orbit. It's gonna go around and everything, and then it's gonna come back and splash down. So yeah, it's gonna be a little bit until that happens. But it's not gonna become space junk, so that's great.
Exactly. And what's also not junk is DWise's slow-mo, which we will see on the way out. Also, Scott becoming a Capcom member. Thank you very much for that. We will see you in the NSF Discord there. We've got all of our fun channels for food and gaming, in addition to ones for all the different spaceflight companies and different rockets, and it's really cool. So hopefully we will see you there. And it was good to see the gang out here tonight for this launch. D-Wise out in the field providing views from the press site. Thank you very much, D. And then we had Max Evans also out in the field. Max, thank you for your commentary and your views.
It has been a pleasure as always, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to hang out with us. It was a beautiful one tonight, and I'm glad for everyone who came along and was hopefully enjoying the view.
Now, Alex, I gotta ask, as a Spaniard, is there a little more pride with this one? Is there a little more excitement with it compared to just, say, your not-so-ordinary Starlink?
Well, I mean, it's a military communication satellite, right? So the military will probably be very, very thankful about it, and they'll be very, very happy for it. But I gotta say, it's not the first Spanish payload on a SpaceX rocket. And I wanted to say, because recently we had the 10,000th Starlink launch, not the launch, but like the satellite, the 10,000th Starlink, right, launched into orbit. And just so happens that the first prototypes, Tintin A and Tintin B, they launched with a Spanish military satellite called PATH. So I thought it was a very nice and very fitting thing to have as well, a Spanish military satellite here just a few days after that. So yeah, it's been a few Spanish payloads on Falcon 9s.
Yeah, I mean, the other companion to this one launched this year. I believe it was January. So yeah.
Yep.
But yes, and a shout out to Jay Keegan as well for pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and not breaking the panel tonight. Thank you very much, Jay, for sticking with us all the way through payload deploy. We need to get a picture for Jay up there. But yeah, check out any photos and things from the team out in the field on the NSF socials if you're not already following them. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host for today's launch broadcast for Spainsat. Thank you very much for joining us here at NSF. We will see you for the next one, and stick around now for the D-Wise slow-mo outro.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roger, planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
145! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What do you think?
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.